Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for stopping by for another episode of Friday Reads, okay, where I talk about all the books I read this week and or plan on reading this weekend. I am currently in the middle of two books. I finished one. So the first book that I finished was YellowFace by R.F. Kuang. I'm realizing that this doesn't look backwards when I'm editing it, so I rated it like 3 stars, I think. There's so many things that I found myself like taking some time out to like sit down and just kind of like ponder about. From the last video, I talk about how this book is about a white woman who, after witnessing the death of her Chinese American friend and colleague, she decides to take her friend's manuscript, edit it to her liking, and poses the story as her, or publishes it as her own. This book tackles the discussion of cultural appropriation, cancel culture, displaced insecurities, and a huge theme that was pretty prevalent throughout the book was envy. And this idea of, can two people maintain a healthy relationship when there is a lot of envy involved? I found that the book was really funny. Oftentimes, to me, I know like June is supposed to be like this like really terrible person, but I don't know, like I found it very comical, and at times I kind of felt bad for her because she had so many views about herself and the world and her friend, and she never thinks to take the time out to ask herself, like, okay, like, why do I feel this way about X, Y, and Z, right? Like, why do I personally feel these things? It kind of hints to the quality of her work here and there, but she never really reaches the conclusion of whether or not all of this may not be because of like racism, right? Or her being oppressed and her need to avenge and redeem herself because of the many times that she was quote unquote robbed from her success due to her friend Athena's success in the publishing industry. She never really sits down and really like processes it and asks herself this question. And I think that was the most pathetic part overall, and that made me feel a bit sorry for her. We also talk about the publishing house and how that industry works and how they try to manipulate situations and circumstances in order to prevail through any kind of like trials and tribulations they may face or backlashes that they may face. I think that this was a pretty decent book. There was a point where June goes into she starts researching on the idea of death and ghosts in I think I'm not really sure where it was, but I don't know if it was mythology or religion. I'm not really sure because I read this a while back, but it was during that time where she was trying to find certain like remedies to expel Athena's ghost from her life. That's where it kind of dipped a little bit for me. But then when we see like how the activity just kind of heightens, right? It picked itself immediately back up, and I was just like, okay, because I thought like I was about to get lost in the sauce of like dullness, but then like it just kind of like changed then and there. One of the things that was really interesting about this is because I'm not on the internet like that. I don't have any social medias. I've never been too like crazy as far as like stating my opinions and being a part of any kind of like discourse or anything like that. Coming out of high school, my mom was always like, it was kind of like a shaming tactic where just like, you're doing this for like likes and clicks and all that stuff like that. At the time, I didn't understand. I just thought that my mom was just being discouraging because she didn't like me very much. And that's just my own, how I process it. It wasn't the case. Eventually I grew up and I realized I see where she's coming from. But at the time when, coming out of high school, I was just like, why can't I just say what I want to say? Like, it's my opinion and it's my Facebook and blah, blah, blah. It asks you what's on your mind. Why shouldn't I be able to say that? But there has been times where I have tried to express how I felt, and it coming from my own personal opinion, and then it just kind of like turned into something kind of crazy, something that I wasn't intending. And so this conversation about cancel culture and how essentially is like a snake eating itself. This endless cycle of like canceling people. There's a part in the book where someone has an opinion about June and her being able to publish a story that is outside of her culture, and raising this question of who can publish what. June feels like a writer should be able to tell whatever kind of stories that they want, and how writing in itself essentially allows a person to step outside of themselves and see where everyone else is coming from and explore other people's cultures and ideas and stories. And in doing that, we're able to bridge the gap from culture to culture, right? From different backgrounds, from different stories, right? Different ideas, different opinions, and all that stuff like that. And so that part I understood, because at the time when I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, like, can anyone just write any story? And my thing was like, sure, but I feel like it's more so the intent, because there are some stories that I've read where I didn't feel comfortable reading it, because I was just thinking to myself, like, when a person decides to write a historical fiction about a romance between a slave and its slave master, me personally, I don't see what's the point in that. It all boils down to the intent. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we are to discuss, right, a sensitive topic about something outside of ourselves, then the person should be willing to do the research, and their intent is genuine and handling the topic of discussion with care and with open-mindedness, and not tainting it with their own personal bias or their own personal agenda. And I feel like that's where things can get, like, when you step over the line, it becomes a good thing versus a bad thing. The further I got into the book, I understand where a person shouldn't be silenced from doing, speaking their mind and like saying, like voicing their opinions and telling a story, right? Because what happens then, right, when we have these kinds of gatekeeping in particular, where it's like, no, you're not allowed to say this or write about this because you're a white person, right? Then it leaves room for other people to then say, like in the book, where there was an Asian American that was being critiqued by someone else within it was a Chinese American, but a Chinese American was being critiqued for discussing the climate of Chinese culture or Chinese history by someone, and that person was saying, well, you can't speak about Chinese history or Chinese culture or anything related to Chinese politics or whatever the case may be, because you don't speak Chinese. You're in America. Like, you're in San Francisco somewhere, like, you are Americanized, right? So you are not of the culture yourself. You don't even speak the language. And so it becomes a system of the pot calling the kettle black. There's no true progression other than this idea that we caught another body kind of thing. And so at first I thought it was like super funny, because like, this is me on the outside looking in, because I've never been the one to be on Twitter or to be on any kind of social media, like engaging in it. And so I thought it was really interesting. Cancel culture doesn't really essentially solve anything. If anything, it temporarily validates a person's ego, which comes from this unconscious act that is rooted in personal insecurity of not feeling heard and not being able to be taken into account. And I think with June, a lot of times she points the blame at Athena, the internet, and all these other people, because she spent a good portion of her life, right, not being heard, not being seen, not being able to be appreciated for what she had to offer. And so that forces her to take on this act that she thinks that she is standing for some sort of justice for herself. In a sense, she's kind of avenging the pain that she's felt like she constantly experienced, whether that be from the relationship with her mom, after her dad passed away, her being dismissed when she does something very courageous like publishing a book, and being disregarded by the people that were supposed to work for her and look out for her and look out for her best interests, and her seeing the contrast of how her friend Athena was being treated in the industry where she was successful. This is something that she wanted. This is something that she craved. She felt like she was robbed from it. And I think this book tries to at least put on the table where we need to like actually genuinely ask the real questions here. It kind of reminds me of back then, you know, in the biblical times where someone would do something wrong and then like the group would just stone them, right? And then Jesus said, a person who hasn't sinned, right, ever in their lives, cast the first stone. You know what I'm saying? By all means, throw the first rock. We're all living in a system where it's like it's like all messed up. You know what I'm saying? Why aren't we willing to be open enough to have these conversations in order to build? It's this idea of, instead of like automatically dismissing a person, it's like, let's ask these questions. Let's ask questions. Let's build. Let's try to understand, as opposed to, we have a difference of opinion. I'm moving you to the side. I don't care what you say because I have the popular backing of the internet. And so I feel validated in me dismissing you, right? In me disregarding your feelings and your opinions and not taking them into account. And what makes it even sad is because when it starts to hit the fan for June, right, she starts to realize like, hey, like maybe I was wrong. I'm starting to feel guilty, and I want to come clean, but I feel like if I do that, then the internet wins, right? My career is over, and then like they win. When she finally sort of kind of crawls to the light, her publisher, or I don't know who, the person that works for her, he tells her like, hey, like, you know, this controversy is actually making you more popular in the right wing sector. And so she feels like, hey, well, like at least like that's a win right there. So she is then not able to expound upon that question. And so I think overall it's just more so about the questions rather than just trying to dismiss a person, wanting to peel the layers, wanting to actually understand the person. And I think that is the unfortunate situation in this book. Her not being able to understand Athena, and Athena not being able to understand her. And that's what makes it a problem within their friendship. And that's where envy is able to latch itself on into their relationship and fester and grow and influence how they interact with each other. Because there's something that Athena does to June that really hurts June that never gets addressed. And so she starts to have this sort of disdain for Athena, but she keeps her around, right? Why? Why does she keep her around? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm going to say as far as that situation. I'm also currently I'm listening to the partner plot. I'm just going to show you guys right here. So it looks like this. So this is the partner plot by Kristina Forrest. And I am on chapter 10. I got like 5 hours left, 5 hours and 30 minutes left. And this is technically, it follows two characters, two perspectives. So we have Violet from book 1 of The Neighbor Favor. We followed her sister Lily, and Violet makes her appearance in the book. And she was supposed to marry her talent agent. What was he? He wasn't an artist, but he was I forgot what he was. He wasn't an artist, but he was some sort of talent manager. I forgot. She was engaged to that person right when they were supposed to get married. She finds out that he was cheating on her with her client, and they decide to like call it quits. And then instead of, you know, having like a reception or whatever the case may be in a wedding, she decides to throw a good riddance party, like a breaking up party or whatever the case may be. We go back to when she was in high school, a senior in high school, and she is dating this guy named Xavier who had just moved there, and he played football for the school's team. She was a dancer at the time, and they get together and they have this like teenage romance. Xavier gets injured, he breaks up with her, and she has been hurt from that situation ever since. She doesn't carry it or whatever the case may be, but she does she does remember, right? She hasn't forgot, like, he just kind of like left her high and dry. They bump into each other in Vegas. She is a bit hesitant to open herself up back to him because of how things have ended. What ended up happening is they get drunk and then they get married in Vegas. It's not like a legitimate marriage, but they get married in Vegas. And when they wake up the next morning, you know, Violet's just like, oh my God, like, what the heck just happened? They go their separate ways. And they're thinking like that's supposed to be the end of that whole situation. Violet is being interviewed for a magazine for 30 under 30 stylists. And the interviewer mentions her situation with her ex-fiance and her client. Violet is a celebrity stylist. And the person that she was styling, she took her fiance. And so the interviewer questions her about the situation. She wants to know a little bit about how she's feeling, how she's handling, like, what's going on there. And so she decides to tell the interviewer, like, you know, like, I'm over it. Like, I'm fine. I'm actually married. You know, I'm married to my high school sweetheart and he's not in the industry. Everything's okay. And so what ends up happening is this story ends up getting published in the magazine. And people in the town that she's from and that Xavier still stays, they're talking about it. Like, it's like the hot topic of the town. Xavier gets into contact with Violet and he's like, yo, like, what the heck? Like, why did you tell people that we were married? When her mom gets involved, not necessarily scolds her, but expresses her disappointment, it makes Violet feel that childhood feeling that she used to feel when she was looked upon as like the black sheep and this unruling daughter who couldn't be as good as her sisters. So she doesn't know how to have that conversation with her mom at that moment. So Xavier decides to, you know, pull her to the side and tell her, like, you know, maybe this could work in our favor, because if I can pose as a married man, then this can help my career like it's helped your career. He wants an assistant coach position at a university, but the guy who is looking to hire him feels like he's a bit unreliable because he isn't married. So therefore his so-called like bachelor life could, I guess, in some way, shape, or form reflect how he may be unstable. You know, like there might be some instability there in his life. Like, why does that matter? I don't know, but I guess you need to be married in order to prove to someone that you are a stable, reliable person. But that's the situation. And so Xavier tells Violet, like, hey, like, maybe we should just pose as like a married couple so that we can help each other out. Your mom will get off your back, you know, like, you won't while you're here, because like she's injured, so she's supposed to be in town for like a few weeks. Xavier's like, I can use this to my benefit and then you can use this to your benefit, because then like people won't think of you as like someone who did something crazy. So Violet feels like what she's done, or this potential lie, could ruin her parents' relationships with the people in the town, and her dragging Xavier into the situation, it could just look really bad. She decides, okay, we'll maintain this fake marriage, but only to an extent. We will amicably separate and everyone will look good. I'm really liking it. I'm having a good time. Like I said before, I enjoy Kristina Forrest's books, and so, you know, I'm always like a fan. So as far as a book that I'm actually reading, I am 64% into Charming as a Verb by Philippe. I've read his other book, The Field Guide to the North American Teenager, like on my other channel, like years ago. And I thought it was pretty good. I think this book is pretty good as well. Like, we follow two students who goes to this prestigious school called FATE. Henry is a Haitian American who is trying his best to appease his father and getting accepted to Columbia University, despite like low-key like having his own personal aspirations of becoming some sort of designer for sneakers. We just kind of follow his perspective. He becomes friends with a young lady named oh gosh, I forgot her name. What is her name? Corinne, aka Corey, and he slowly starts to develop feelings for her. In the beginning, she tries to blackmail him into getting him to make her more popular so that in her recommendation letter, she can appeal as more fun and sociable and outgoing instead of like being considered intense because she wants to be accepted into, I forgot what university it was called, into Princeton. What ends up happening is the more that they hang out with one another, the more they are starting to develop feelings for one another. I'm really enjoying it. I love the writing. I think it's really funny. I like reading guys' perspectives from guy authors. Like, I mean, it would make sense, right, that that's like the case, but I really do enjoy it because just the feeling that I get, it just feels really different. When I'm reading from a guy's perspective, it's usually from a girl author, so it just feels really, it feels nice to look at men from a different through a different pen is what I should say. I really love their personalities. It kind of reminds me of the 10 Things I Hate About You. You know, like when they're so young, but like they're well educated, and it's very mature, but it's also very comical. It's really fun, and there's been so many times I've highlighted something that made me laugh because I was just like, you know what? Like, Henry is really funny. Corey, she's okay, because sometimes like we can create this character that is like considered different from everybody else, but you can tell that she is very different from the rest of her peers and, you know, her classmates just by her naturally or Ben Philippe's natural ability to create a character that you don't have to like say it, right? Like it's shown. You can see that she's different. You can see the contrast between her and everyone else, and it's there. The evidence is there. You don't have to be spoon-fed it or like programmed, right, into like telling like, hey, like she's not like everyone else. She's different. It's just really nice. It's really wholesome. It's really nice, and you know, I like it. I like this because it also too reminds me of those times where I was trying to get into university, even though for me personally, I didn't really care. The school that I wanted to go to, I got accepted to. So I didn't really necessarily have to deal with the anxiety of like, you know, being like, what school should I go to or where do I get accepted to? Because I never really cared about that stuff, but it does bring back that feeling, and that feeling allows me to further establish the environment, the setting, the feels, and that helps me to be immersed in the story even more. And yeah, I just like the book, and so I'm really excited. I was thinking about, for me, I'm already thinking about what I want to do next. But I feel like after I finish this book, I low-key am thinking if I should read The Dream Count. So maybe like read The Dream Count by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Or do I want to continue reading from a male author and pick up Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. So I don't really know. Hang on, my mom's calling me. All right, so yeah, Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. So I'm thinking like, should I read this? I don't really know, but I don't know. I'm really interested in reading this because I love Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I've read Americana. I've read her other book, something about the hibiscus. So the books that I read from her was Americana and Purple Hibiscus. Those two books I read from her, I really enjoyed. I actually also I copped Half of a Yellow Sun, so I want to eventually read that as well. But I want to read Dream Count because like she was chosen for the Long Booker Prize, the long list or whatever, and so I really want to see like what it's about. And so yeah, that's pretty much all that I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Until next time, peace.